What's up, everybody? This is the MRI report, your MRI report for week 12. And we are brought to you by, you know, Dave Matthews again.
And Tim
This is
Reynolds.
the
Don't
second
leave us.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Tim Reynolds. So, this segment is brought to you by ViridianGlobal.com. If you want to be the best and look the best in your fantasy football leagues, head over to Viridian Global and buy a couple shirts and hoodies on me. I can tell you from personal experience that Viridian shirts are first class and they have the best designs in the business. Some of mine.
I was
No
gonna
more
say,
overpaying.
how do we know they're the best? Because Maddie's designing them himself.
Yeah. No more overpaying for fantasy apparel. First time customers use code MBC2020 to save 10% and tell them that Matty Big Chest sent you. That's a good deal. I'd
I
take
like
that.
it. I got to get on a shirt or two there. I've heard good things. I'm very picky when it comes to my t-shirts and having finite space in my smallish New York City apartment. I'm even pickier about adding new clothing to the wardrobe. But it sounds like it's a great combination of looks and feel. I love a t-shirt that fits perfectly. So I think I might have to finally, pony up. Not that much because we got the discount and get something I like. Cowboys fans, so there's probably not any good Cowboys ones out there though.
They have a CD Lamb one that looks pretty good. But it's the athletic fit, so it makes it look skinny no matter what. I really like the fit of their shirts for that reason. So let's get into some injuries on week 12. There was some pretty big ones for fantasy. We thought there was some big ones, but we might have dodged the bullet with DJ Moore. You want to talk about him?
Yeah, so let's talk about DJ Moore. That was an interesting one because that sounded so bad from what fantasy Twitter had to say. Luckily, my boys in the Patreon found a video for me quickly. I was able to look at it. It wasn't the greatest view, but it was just odd to me that it looked like it occurred on his take off, which is usually not when Achilles tendons rupture. So that's usually during landing or cutting. It's when it's lengthening under load very quickly. That's the scary one for soft tissue stuff, especially. And so I was not on that. It was odd though because the way he grabbed both his upper calf and right behind his heel. I'm like, I don't know. This is strange, but it didn't look like the belly of the gastroc head. The gastrocnemius is the big calf muscle. It didn't look deformed. That usually when the Achilles tendon ruptures, everything balls up a little bit higher, literally like a rubber band is being pulled up north on the back of the leg there. That's a little bit of just my thought process as far as trying to assess injury via video, maybe more than you guys need to know. The short of it is the MRI report reported no significant damage. It sounds like maybe he just has a minor ankle sprain. My thought process was maybe it was just a calf strain, but regardless, the Panthers are on a bye this week, so we have many days, as our soon-to-be former fearless leader might describe. We have many days to figure this out before knowing what his uncertainty or certainty for week 14 is. I don't think there's – do you have any speculative ads that you would hop on between now and maybe this weekend instead of – who would you add in case you think DJ Moore isn't a go in week 14? Anybody, or is that depth chart seems pretty
it's pretty
finite
set
right now.
Stone, man. That's Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel if DJ Moore's not a go. But I do think that DJ Moore should be able to play in week 14. It seems like it was just a strain and that he's going to be okay. They were just doing it for preemptive measures. So they took him out of the game. But yeah, he looks okay. And
I was just going to say, that being said, we have seen now the Carolina staff be extremely cautious with Christian McCaffrey. Well, not probably going to get a lot of information with them on their bye week as they, there won't be practice reports, but we'll look to, Wednesday next week will be the important one, assuming they have a Sunday game next week. I don't think they're the Thursday game next week. But yeah, so that's the, fantasy football Twitter has loved DJ Moore for some time now, and he was sort of catching some steam after a slow-ish start. Avoided something serious there. Moving on to probably the next most potentially serious one from a fantasy perspective, Daniel Jones of the New York Football Giants has a strained hamstring. He left the game on what looked like a fairly benign play. I have to go back and look at the film and see really how he managed to strain his hamstring on this one. Daniel Jones being that guy touched 21 miles per hour this season. Nobody watching this podcast, watching this YouTube video, or listening to this pod, unless there's some, for whatever reason, NFL guys or top 1% athletes listening to this, we're not touching 21 miles per hour, guys. So the fact that it wasn't on like some crazy scramble or long play that Daniel Jones was a victim of, that, the sniper from the clock tower that usually is 40 yards downfield, was odd. But so he left the game and then he trotted back out. This game was way closer than I thought it would be. It was interesting. The Giants really, I felt like, controlled the clock and the yardage and the yards per play in the first half. Some big plays, some long drives, but some poor special teams, which is surprising under Joe Judge, ex-special teams coach of the Patriots. I think they have a clean record up until this game. The couple special teams blunders, giving up some really long returns, and then some poorly timed turnovers, giving up some really good field position, kept the Bengals in this. And so this game was close when Daniel Jones went down. He came back in for, I believe, a handoff, and then he made one throw, and you could tell as he tried to step off, I think it was his right leg. So trying to push off of that right leg, extend that hip. The hamstring is a part of hip extension. It's in terminal hip extension or the back end of hip extension. It's very much a glute dominated movement, but the hamstring does need to be involved there. So after that one, you could tell. He was limping back onto the field, and then he limped off. But the fact that he was sort of able to come back in and play a play, I didn't think it was that serious. My brother is the big Giants fan, my whole family's big Giants fans, but my younger brother's got his ear to the ground, probably more so than I do, especially as real Giants football goes. He knows probably every player on the depth chart. But we were going back and forth, and I was like, I don't think it can be that serious based on all of that. And then all of a sudden, reports after the game was that it's very serious and could be season ending. And I was befuddled, but we wouldn't be able to know that without an MRI. And sure enough, the MRI. Now, this is not a victory lap. I was just confused by the way it was all handled. The MRI showed that he avoided very significant damage, and our back and forth was that maybe they were just preparing the football universe to probably not expect him to play week 13 coming up, and maybe he comes back for week 14. Probably, I imagine it will depend on how things unfold in this NFC least. Man, the Eagles lost last night, so the Washington football team has Washington and the Giants both 4-7 after.
Mm-hmm. But wow. I think the Washington football team has the
tiebreaker, right? Yeah. So who knows? I think who do the Giants have this week? The Seahawks. That's a tough one. So the Giants will be. I'm not sure if that's home or away. I'll be doing my prep for the fabulous big bet tomorrow night.
What's your take on Kyler Murray and his shoulder?
So
let's talk about that.
I wish we touched on that one a little bit last week. Actually, we did. We touched on it a little bit. I didn't watch much of that game. Here, maybe this is an unpopular take. Not a fan of the red zone. Like, it's cool for fantasy purposes, but I really like to watch a football game. I don't like when somebody else decides like when when a game is going off. I digress. But I did.
So you need 12 TVs to watch all the 1 p.m. games.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'll just watch my two shitty NFC East. It's the Fox game is usually a shitty NFC East game, and then the CBS one is the shitty AFC East game, because it wasn't the Pats. It was Jets Dolphins, and then Giants Bungles. Luckily, because we're so involved with fantasy and the big bet, I very much was on the Giants and Bengals game because I teased the Giants to win. I got them, basically outright and the under, which hit, but it wasn't without some heart racing. You'll get the rundown on that tomorrow night. But Kyler Murray, I was definitely with that AC joint sprain concerned with his ability to get the ball downfield and probably accuracy as he gets further downfield. So I don't know what that game looked like, but I did see enough with
He
the
didn't
red
run a
zone.
lot.
He didn't run a lot. Okay, so maybe he was avoiding contact. Maybe
Yeah,
Bill Belichick. I'm sure he had a great defensive scheme going into that game.
he did. And they beat him.
But there was at least one throw I saw that was down a sideline, and it was either, I don't know. It just was like Kyler Murray usually nails those like outside the hash marks down the field go routes, and it was very off.
Yeah.
So if we get, I don't know if somebody gets me some 5 minutes of Kyler Murray throwing tape this past week. This is me calling everybody out. Slide it into my DMs or whatnot, and maybe we'll get some better analysis there. But I don't know. It could have been a function of West Coast, not West Coast, but 3 time zones away, West Coast team traveling to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock game, which is usually a challenge. And then, Belichick at home. That was one where I was very close to getting on the Patriots in some regard, but they've had such a Jekyll and Hyde season that I didn't want to touch it. But, maybe it's just Bill at home with creating a very good game plan like he did against the Ravens with, the Ravens involved weather. Anyway, I digress. That's my thoughts on Kyler. The only other so we have 2 more real like fantasy offensive guys. Philip Lindsay sustained what seems to be a very minor knee injury and might go this upcoming weekend. I feel like he's been the most efficient running back in that backfield from a rushing standpoint. I mean, hopefully they get a real quarterback back this week so that some guys can be fantasy relevant.
They all tested negative.
All right, thank God. Well, boneheads. That's all I got to say is like
they were eating during a meeting.
That's brutal.
They were taking their mask down to eat, so that's why there were trace contacts.
Sure.
That's what they said.
I'm sure that's what it was. There was an interesting take on the GM Shuffle from yesterday that I listened to today, where hopefully all the NFL teams learn from this one and put their third string quarterback. Okay, you are not to do anything near the first and second, because what happened to the Broncos, if that happens to a playoff contending team, like that has very, very severe implications. But yeah, Philip Lindsay, keep an eye.
Like the Lions, they got to keep the plow away from Stafford.
Yeah, because they're contenders. That interesting. I'm intrigued to see how if Kenny Golladay especially is back.
He's going to come back. He's going to come back now that Patricia's gone.
Yeah, I wonder if the Lions rally around Patricia being fired. Like we've seen it happen now with the Falcons this year. We've seen it happen in years past. God damn it! I'm convinced that's how Jason Garrett ended up the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, however many years ago that was, when they fired Wade Phillips. And I was like, no, please don't. Biggest Jason Garrett hater over here. Anyway, we will keep an eye on Philip Lindsay's practice reports, but I expect that he might be a go this weekend, and hopefully Drew Lock is back in there because he gives them the best chance to compete. When he's been healthy, they've been good, and I think he's, as long as he's avoided COVID, he's as healthy as he's been all season. And then Will Fuller, suspended 6 games for violating the NFL substance abuse policy. A man couldn't.
Yeah, whatever he's using should be legalized.
Yeah, seriously, a lot of those guys could use it this year. 4 years of just battling injuries, and he's finally putting up his breakout season. And sure enough, he had an Instagram post about how, and it very much is plausible that he took something that a doctor said was allowed, that wasn't banned by the NFL, or it was substantiated, whatever that process is. But shame on him and or his agent and whatever staff he's consulting to not do their due diligence to really make sure. I imagine there's just a list, like and you can probably control F it like we all do, for our quick searches on whatever writing program, whether it's Google Docs, Microsoft Word, or just your goddamn internet. So bummer, Will Fuller going to miss the season, and he's going to be a free agent next year. So who knows what's going to happen with him? I imagine what he did this year was probably good enough to land him a decent sized contract, but with the cap issues going into next season potentially, and this could be a loaded free agent class, and we know it's going to be a loaded rookie class being drafted. Who knows? So that's unfortunate for Will Fuller. And my thoughts there is that might be unfortunate for the Texans the rest of the season, because Deshaun Watson is great. He's still like a top 5 quarterback, probably top 5 quarterback for dynasty for sure. Probably like a top 8 NFL quarterback. As far as if you wanted to win a Super Bowl next year, which quarterback would you want on your team? I imagine he's right there. But with Will Fuller out and Kenny Stills just being released, it's now down to Brandon Cooks and then Kiki QT, some tight ends, and then David
Isaiah
Johnson.
Coulter.
Is he okay, Maddie? Is
He's
that
a
our
rookie.
Is he an ad?
6'4". He's a good ad.
Okay.
If he's available in dynasty leagues in a short league, he's a good pickup. I think that he has some good potential to actually show out, because it's not like they're playing with a what is it called, an interim coach right now. They're gonna give some guys some chances, and they're gonna see who can ball out before they decide to hire a GM and coach. So
you're right. Yeah, I like that take. Yeah, so some of these younger guys will get a chance again. And then moving on to an injury. So this week coming up, the Texans and the Colts play, and that was one where I'm like, okay, these injuries might have some implications. That over under opened. All right, I should rephrase it. I don't know if it opened at 53, but looking today, it was at 53, and I'm slowly, Monday I look at them. Look for any obvious ones. Tuesday, I look again and see what else. And so I'm looking a little deeper today, since it's Tuesday, as we'll record tomorrow for the big bet. And now knowing that Fuller is out, Stills has been released. And then on the other side of that game, Anthony Costanza suffered an MCL sprain in Indianapolis's game against Tennessee. And so that was a huge scoring game, but a lot of the Colts points came in time that didn't matter. The Titans had this game in hand in the first half, and their defense, we know, is fairly friendly for fantasy and betting over reasons.
I traded away Derrick Henry to the guy I'm playing this week for Justin Herbert. I gave him DJ Moore and Derrick Henry and Matthew Stafford for Justin Herbert and a future first.
Okay.
So it was a fair trade.
Yeah, and are you
Justin
Justin
Herbert? Yes, and I needed a quarterback to really push me over the edge.
Gotcha.
Because I have DeAndre Swift and Antonio Gibson, so I was like, I'm set.
Go figure. Everybody drink. Maddie said DeAndre Swift and Antonio Gibson. I'm kidding.
What's up?
But
I got Derrick Henry, and I lost by 1 point.
Brutal. I just traded Derrick Henry. So I'm in one of my home leagues is it's a keeper league. You can keep 3 guys each year, and you can keep any guy up to 3 years. And so like if you draft a guy, you get him that year, and then potentially 2 years longer. And the first year you keep him, you lose whatever round you drafted him, and then the following you lose a round up. But I just traded James Robinson, who I picked up as a free agent, and our free agent designation is a 9th round pick in that league. So it would have been, potentially a great keep to keep James Robinson for a 9th round pick, but I like at least 3 other keepers on that roster. So I just traded Robinson for Derrick Henry, who I probably won't keep because it'll cost me first or a second, which I don't know. We'll see. But I traded Robinson straight up for Derrick Henry just to get him for the playoff push. And then sure enough, like every other one of my running backs, like Mixon, Gurley, Swift, all didn't play this week. And I went up against the guy I traded James Robinson to, C-Bat. And it's a flea flicker league, and Big Ben is his quarterback, and he's losing by like 13 points. And I don't think flea flicker is going to be counting that game. So I think that trade was the difference in my week. Anyway, so I digress, but going back to this Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts game, Houston's defense hasn't been very formidable this year, but if Phillip Rivers is without his left tackle, which we've already seen this year, has been very, very important, both for their passing game and their running game. I might be on this under, and it might be time. You might be fading some of the. It's probably a fade Michael Pittman and T.Y. Hilton week for sure, even though Hilton just broke out. Maybe you're playing Hines and possibly Taylor, but I don't know. I might. I got to think about this one, and we'll keep an eye on Costanza because there's probably a chance he does play this week. But if he doesn't, I'm probably going under that 53. I think we see. I feel like we had a lot of high scoring games the first half of the year. I think now that there's enough film on teams, and we're seeing divisional games where they're playing a second time already. I think we're seeing more unders, and we saw it last night. And what I thought would be more of a shootout, but that Eagles defense has played pretty well most of the year, and I think the Seahawks defense was coming on. But anyway, we got one more to talk about. We had Corey Linsley, center for the Green Bay Packers, was carted off the field in Green Bay on was that Sunday night against the Bears. It sounds like he's avoided anything season-ending, but he does have a sprained MCL that will probably keep him out at least a week, maybe two. So keep an eye on that. The Packers play the Eagles this week. Is that in Philly or in Green Bay? It is in Green Bay. So that I don't know. I don't know about
it's gonna
that.
Be cold.
Yeah, it's gonna be cold. It's going to be cold for sure. But both of those teams are probably used to playing in the cold at this point. So I don't think that affects any of them, but might affect the Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and Aaron Dillon less running game.
50% split between Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams is just crazy.
It is wild. But like in Jamal Williams' defense, like he's been pretty good, right?
Yeah, he's improved a lot this year. So I mean
I thought. I mean, when he got to show out last year, he was pretty good too. Like he catches the ball fairly well out of the backfield, and I don't know. I know as fantasy players, we all want that one guy to be the guy. But if you have a few guys that are good enough and you trust, like the name of the game is keeping guys fresh, especially in this season, this year of attrition with what feels like so many key guys going down at points in the season. And I don't know if there's more injuries this year than in past, but it just feels like so many more key guys, like for first round picks in redraft, like what first round picks have been super reliable? Like McCaffrey, Barkley, no. Zeke, no. Not injury related, but perhaps COVID.
Kamara was reliable. When Breeze was healthy.
Yeah. And then look, Breeze going down, and of course now Taysom Hill is, and maybe Kamara is irrelevant until Breeze comes back. Who knows? I got to think that with more time they'll get him the ball more. Also, in just a weird thought on that Saints Hill situation. Okay, so the Saints played the Broncos this past weekend against a wide receiver from Wake Forest, basically. So that game was pretty much in the bag. The week before, they played the Falcons, and now they play the Falcons again. Wouldn't it be something if Sean Payton was like, all right, we play them again in 2 weeks. Let's throw a curveball at them and not announce our starting quarterback until late in the week. And they're probably, I would imagine they were planning for a Winston in Atlanta because of he backed up Breeze when he went down, and he was signed in the offseason. He's like our prototypical quarterback. Like that's a big change to go from a Drew Brees to a Taysom Hill. But what if Peyton was just like, okay, this is the curveball I'm going to throw at them then, and then we roll with Taysom Hill against Denver, and then what if this week he switches to Jameis Winston? I don't like it's probably like a less than 5% chance, but the Saints play the Falcons again this week in a divisional game. They have a little bit of a cushion against the Bucs right now, but I think if the Saints win this week, what's their record going to be?
They're
10-2 or 9-3.
Yeah, I mean they're the best in the NFC.
Yeah, and to have beaten the Bucs twice, the Falcons twice. I got to think they would be very close to having that wrapped up. So yeah, that's a fairly quiet week for injuries this past week. hopefully it stays that way the rest of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, Kenny and Drake's back. He looks healthy. He looks good. Kenny
Hopefully
Galladay needs
Swift
to
is
come
back.
back healthy. Swift needs to come back. You know, Jonathan Taylor needs to come back. We need some guys to come back healthy and come back strong this week for our fantasy playoffs. And I mean, do you have any playoffs starting this week?
No.
Me neither.
No.
They started 14
all
for
week
me.
14. Yeah, all week 14.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they need to come back so I can make the playoffs because I'm on the bubble in a lot of leagues.
Me too, man. I don't think there's one league I'm in right now where I have first or second place, or I'm in first or second place. Maybe one of my dynasty leagues I'm in second place, but I have playoffs wrapped up in 0 leagues right now, and that's frustrating, especially navigating injuries and throwing down fab or waiver claims every week. So, and then being wrong about fucking kickers and defenses.
You know, if you had a Young Wei Koo, you'd be golden every week.
Seriously,
that guy's scoring like a mad dog.
Leading scorer in the league, right?
Yeah, he's got to be.
He's got 29 field goals. That's basically the equivalent of probably 13 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's crazy.
I don't think anybody's got 13 touchdowns, right?
No, he's nuts, but and he's good at onside kicks.
Oh, and extra points are thrown in there too. Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna wrap up the most reliable injury report with some kicker takes.
Mm-hmm. That's it, guys. Have a good week and no injuries week 13. Let's go.
Fingers crossed.